Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
Foundations.
The virgin will conceive. The young girl up the road's going to get pregnant. Well, what do you do? Because young girls have been getting pregnant since Eve.
That's right.
This is talking about a miracle. And to say that it's not a miraculous birth is to deny God his honour and glory.
Foundations. Understanding the Jewish foundations of our Christian faith. With Robbo Robinson and Mandy Warby.
In our last program, we learned about the historical context of the prophecy given to King Ahaz of Judah regarding the virgin birth. This time we're going to learn more about the meaning of the Hebrew word Alma and whether or not it was really referring to a virgin.
There is, I'm not going to mention his name, but there was a pastor, a Gentile pastor, who actually said that if Jesus wasn't really born of a virgin, if his earthly father's name was Larry or something, it wouldn't really matter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty horrific stuff. If it wasn't a virgin, then, Jesus' dad could be anybody, not God. So there was this medieval French rabbi whose name was Shlomo Yitzhaki. He's known as Rashi today, so I'm just going to stick with Rashi. And he is very much a favourite among the religious Jews and Jewish scholars because his work and writings were primarily focused at the time on disproving the claims of Christ from the Old Covenant scriptures. And when he first began making his claims, many of his contemporaries actually declared him to be a heretic because they were completely different to what they had always been taught and understood the scriptures to mean. But now he's very popular because church history is replete with a lot of Christian persecution against the Jews, and so any excuse to disagree with Christian theology and they will take it. Okay, so Rashi's a favourite. But one of Rashi's claims was that the word virgin referred to in Isaiah 7:14 wasn't really referring to a virgin at all. Okay, and there have been rabbis since who say that the word for virgin doesn't mean a young woman who's never had sex, just that it means a young maiden.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's read that verse again so that we have it in our minds. It's Isaiah 7:14. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, a virgin will be with child and bear a son, and she'll call his name Emmanuel.
Now, there's another rabbi, Joseph Mizrahi, and he also challenged the New Covenant's teaching of the virgin birth, and he said this: never in history did anyone interpret the word Alma as virgin. I just want to say that's not true at all. There are two Hebrew words that can be translated as virgin. Okay, those two words are Betula and Alma. The word Betula can actually refer to both a married and an unmarried woman, but the word Alma refers to a young woman, specifically unmarried. All right? So I want to quote from an article by one of my favourites, Dr. Itan Bar from the Ministry of One for Israel. This is what he wrote. Quote, according to the culture and to God's commandments during biblical times, a young girl who never married would be presumed to be chaste. Therefore, the use of the word Alma rather than Betula in this verse and prophecy regarding the birth of the Messiah actually refers to the fact that the Messiah was supposed to be born in a miraculous way, end quote.
Yeah.
Okay, so because the word Alma is used and not Betula, it's actually talking about an unmarried woman. So the word Alma, okay, let me reinforce this. It occurs in the Old Covenant 7 times. And in every single case, it's referring to a young and unmarried woman. And Rashi, that rabbi was telling you from the 11th century, he actually interpreted the word Alma in all the other parts of Scripture, like in Song of Solomon, as a virgin, a young woman untouched by a man. The only time that Rashi and other rabbis interpret the word Alma as just a young woman is in the case of Isaiah 7:14, because they cannot allow for that to be accepted, and therefore the consequence would be that it was referring to Jesus being born of a virgin.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the only place that they don't use or interpret the word Alma to mean an untouched woman, an unmarried untouched woman. Okay? Now, the Jewish believer and a scholar whom I really, really like, his name is Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum, And he explains the reason for Rashi's refusal to believe in the virgin birth prophecy. And it was because he was heavily involved at the time, in the medieval time, in polemic debates against Christians, in the 11th, 12th centuries. And therefore he had to take the opposing view in his attempt to disprove Jesus' messiahship. But again, I've got to emphasize, Rashi interpreted the word Alma to be a virgin in all other places in Scripture, just not that one.
It's a sad thing, really, because I guess this is this judicial blindness that we see in the Jewish people. Jesus declared that when he could have rode into Jerusalem on the donkey. And it's very sad to see that being played out over all these centuries.
It really is, actually. We know a rabbi, he's a lovely, lovely man, actually, in Jerusalem, who actually confessed to a friend of ours, a Christian friend of ours. He says, look, I can see what you're saying. I understand why you're saying what you're saying, but I admit I'm blind because I can't accept it.
Wow.
So they know it.
Well, let's go back to that verse then in Isaiah 7. So we were reading verse 14 a few moments ago. Verses 10 and 11 says, Then the Lord spoke again to Ahaz, saying, Ask a sign for yourself from the Lord your God. Make it deep as Sheol or high as heaven.
Okay, the really important thing to remember there is where he says at the end, make this sign that you ask for as deep as Sheol or as high as heaven. If the rabbis are saying that all Isaiah's prophecy was that a young unmarried maiden would fall pregnant, are you telling me that the God of all heaven and earth, the creator of everything, that's the best he can come up with?
Yeah.
This is God's sign.
Yeah.
If he asks Ahaz to ask for a sign as high as heaven or as deep as Sheol, and then he says, oh, no, I'm not going to, and God says, fine, you want a sign? I'll give you a sign. The virgin will conceive. The young girl up the road's going to get pregnant. Well, whoop-de-doo, because young girls have been getting pregnant since Eve.
That's right.
This is talking about a miracle. And to say that it's not a miraculous birth is to deny God his honour and glory. Why is it he thought that Ahaz could come up with a sign that would be bigger than one God could come up with?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay, so I've got to ask this question. If Rashi and the others are correct, the young woman mentioned, if not a virgin, then really God is saying that a young adulterous woman was going to have a baby. And how can they attribute that to God?
Yeah.
That's abhorrent.
And he would be named Emmanuel, God with us.
Exactly. All right, so let's be real for a second. If you have an ovum and you have a sperm and they come together, you get life. If you don't have an ovum and you don't have a sperm, or you have an ovum or a sperm but not the other, you don't have life. So we're talking about a sign here that's beyond the heights of heaven, that is deeper than the pits of Sheol. I mean, let that sink in for a second.
It's scientifically impossible.
It is scientifically impossible. And what's more, this baby's name is going to be God with us. Or when I looked it up in the Blue Letter Bible, it actually says, with us is God.
Oh, right.
Now, does that make it sound a little different to just, yes, God with us. As we go about our day, God is with us wherever we go. And that is true. I don't want to, I sound like I'm demeaning it. No, that is true. Everywhere we go, God is with us.
Yeah.
But this is talking specifically about the baby.
Yeah.
The baby is going to be with us is God.
Yeah, that's right.
Does that not make you sort of suck your breath in a little bit and make you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
How fantastic is that?
It's a wonderful thing. It certainly puts a whole different spin on that understanding of that prophecy and the sign that God gave to Ahaz.
And the
just
historical
the significance
context,
of it.
Robbo, without all of that previous historical context with King Ahaz and the besieging of Jerusalem and God's frustration with Ahaz, and he says, fine, I'll give you a sign, and this is going to be it. Bigger than the heavens, deeper than Sheol. It's bigger than the universe. That God was going to become a baby and be with us.
Such a great truth. Well, next time we're going to be taking some time to learn about the depth and richness of the wonderful name Emmanuel. That's next time on Foundations.
This has been Foundations, a look at the Jewish foundations of our Christian faith. For study notes, resources and more, see vision.org.au/foundations.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.